Hello, everybody. We're back this week with international real estate goals. And today we have a special guest I'll introduce in a minute. And as we do that, I want to talk about, I want to do a brief bio of Sean. Many of you already know him, but I want to share that he's a US veteran who traded, the life in the US and moved to Playa del Carmen several years ago. Sean, also known as CaribeGringo, is an entrepreneur that founded Boingo AI, which we'll talk about that too today. Anything that has to do with technology and real estate, we love in this call. So you'll know more about his story and also, why he does today. He's a trusted connector for better properties in Mexico. If you guys don't know, probably many of you know, there is a trust factor when it comes to buying real estate in Mexico. So Sean has been doing all the legwork and homework on, how creating a community helps with avoiding clients going into risky purchases. Also, he has data-driven insights. He shows Mexico's market versus US in a lot of his posts, saying that Mexico is in a post-World War II style boom and within the infrastructure spending and spends more efficiently 4 to 5 times more than the US efficiently. Today, he's going to share his numbers, opportunities, and cultural shifts to help you invest safely in Mexico or help your clients do the same. Please welcome Sean. I want to say how we met. So we met in through BNI, our group in Playa. And this is a picture from last year. That's when we're doing a quick networking. So that's the importance of, networking.
Yeah, the fun day.
Um, let me see if you can see him and his screen. So let me pin you here. Take it out.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right. So I can share my screen?
Yeah, you can share now. Let me
Okay.
set off here.
What I'm going to show you is basically just a couple slides out of a pitch deck we have for Boingo, and kind of explain what we're doing. Nathaly and I talked about this a few days ago, and she thought it'd be beneficial to share in this group. So I'll share, I think, the things that I think are interesting. Let's see. Okay. So basically, we're building are you guys, how many are familiar with Zillow? Are most of you guys familiar with Zillow.com in the US? Yeah. So I've got a couple I can see. I can't see everybody. So basically, I moved to Mexico a little over 3 years ago. I've been married it's actually a total of like 35 years by the time we got a divorce. And I was basically just looking for peace. And so I initially moved here just to get peace. And I remember I moved to Acamal initially. And to be honest, I was afraid to leave the house that I rented, the tourist area, because everybody had, a lot of the other tourists would go to the little town and they would tell me how dangerous it was. And I'd heard all the horror stories and everything. And eventually I lived there for 6 months. Eventually I not even, I mean, it was probably like a few weeks I was venturing out and going in there every night for lunch or for dinner. And I was like, wow, this place isn't so bad. I ended up dating a cartel princess for a number of months, whose ex was in the cartel, and she had a baby with him. He was actually a sicario, and he made several hits while we were dating. So I learned a great deal about that kind of inside stuff like that. Anyway, so going through the divorce process, we had to separate the business that we had built like for 15 years. She wanted to run it. So then I had to kind of reinvent myself and figure out what was going on, what I thought would be valuable. And that's when I really got into real estate. And initially I was doing a show. We were trying to recreate, you guys familiar with the show House Hunters International? Hopefully. Okay, so we were trying to recreate a House Hunters International, but do it in a more realistic way. That show is very staged. And we never quite got traction on that, but that's how I kind of got into the real estate world. Was I partnered with another broker and his wife, and we were basically we were showing houses, trying to show people, what was available out here, but very similar to the goal was to do something very similar to House Hunters International. And the very first day we went to do the showing, of the three houses, the third house backed out. So we only had two houses that we shot that day. And then we ended up changing the whole thing and making it basically a a show about two properties instead of three. And then we had like the guys showing a property and the girls showing a property. And then we let the audience pick, but we never had a way to tally votes. So anyway, long story short, the show never got a lot of popularity, but I learned an awful lot about real estate. And some of the things that I learned about real estate in Mexico was there was no site that agglomerated all of these listings. You had a Muebles 24, you had Lumati, you have a couple other ones, Omnis out there, but none of these have more than about 20,000 listings. And I would project right now there's probably 500,000 active listings in Mexico. So 500,000 active listings, nothing has more than about 20,000 listings. Some of the sites have over 100,000, but when we crawled them, they don't have that many unique listings. So none of them really have more than 20,000 unique listings. So anyway, so that seemed like a big gap. Another thing that kind of stood out to me, and we'll talk about it maybe, is 100% of the investors that had Airbnb properties, literally 100% of them hate Airbnb. So those were kind of the big learnings for me, the things that stood out the most. You could say, development properties, there wasn't a lot of trust in development properties. That was another thing that stood out. So anyway, so we started out to build a Zillow type system, we can't say it's an MLS because it's officially not an MLS. Basically, we've developed a platform where we can use our AI to go crawl other websites, and then we can pull in their listings. The website or the AI looks for duplicates, it looks for age, it looks for completeness, it gives them a score, and it removes any duplicates. That's how we know when we've crawled some of these bigger sites, how many they're mostly duplicates. So we built that site. That site's done. We decided to make it more of a opt-in than an aggressive crawl. So we have the ability to like literally type in every website in Mexico and then go crawl it. But we don't want to do that. We prefer to have each website owner sign up for an account, and then just basically paste their URL, and then we crawl it, and then all those listings go within the owner of the website's, my listing section in the website. So that's what we're trying to do. We've also now configured it for Colombia, Argentina, El Salvador, and Costa Rica, and we can add another country within about an hour. So if we want to add the United States, it takes like an hour to do that. But so that's basically so we've got like this Zillow platform, and I say that's like the base. That's the base of what we're doing, but we're building something much bigger. And so this diagram here is basically, or image here is basically represents what we're building. So in the area of preventas, our AI is able to separate whether the property is a real property or like a rendered property. And so right off the bat, we're able to separate preventas from for sale properties. And because we can separate them, we've implemented a rating system that we're turning on, I think, Friday, where virtually all of the preventas we have will get a red badge. And if you hover over the badge, it'll say, warning, Boingo has not vetted this development. If you want more information on this, or you want to move forward with this, here's a link to the procedure we use to vet developments. And then a lot of developers are contacting us now and they're wanting to get certified. So we have like a two-part certification. If Boingo certifies, it's $1,000 and then they get a green badge. We use a pretty similar process to what a lot of attorneys use as far as doing the due diligence. But for $1,000, we can put them through the process of certifying them. And then once they certify, they get a green badge, and then they hover over that and it says this property has been certified. The other thing we're doing is we've partnered with Moxy. So are you guys familiar with Moxy? Everybody? Nathaly is. So for the rest of the group, and maybe not, I can't see who is and who isn't, but for the rest of the group, so Moxy is a finance company in the United States. They finance U.S. citizens to buy properties in Mexico. They finance 70%. And they charge between 7.9 and 8.9% interest right now. If the U.S. cuts rates, those rates will be going down a little. But they're the only finance company that I have come across that I could endorse. So there's a lot of Mexican banks that say they've got an 9 to 11% financing. There's one company that does 10% over a 10-year period that's maybe I can halfway endorse. But the Mexican banks, when we look at the numbers on those, they're actually coming in at like 15 to 17% ROI or IRR rates, interest rates. So like when you look at the APRs, they're saying 9 to 11, but when you calculate them out, they're 15 to 17%. There. Well, one second.
Also, if anybody has any questions, you can post them in the chat so we can keep them and you don't forget them. And we can go over at the end.
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry about that. Somebody was at the door and my dog was
No worries.
Okay, so now let me backtrack trying to figure out where I was. When
Moxy.
you get old. What's that?
Moxy, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So
and the other bank.
So Moxy has good rates. There's another company, it's called HIRR, I believe. They've got a branch here in Playa del Carmen. They finance properties at 10% over a 10-year period. I'm lukewarm on them. And then the Mexican banks, like I said, everything I've seen is like 15 to 17, even though they're quoting 9 to 11. So anyway, if these development properties, and the other thing with Moxy is they only finance properties of 350,000 or more. If they're less than that, it's below their threshold to what they finance. There's really no upper end, but there is a lower end. So if they want, the developer can pay another 1,500, and then we'll submit all of our paperwork to them. They will do another certification. Their certification also includes title insurance. So there's one company in Mexico basically that'll offer title insurance on properties, and so Moxy uses that process. But Moxy normally charges 2,500. They only charge me 1,500, so that's why we can do it for an extra. So anyway, so the listings would go from a red to a green to potentially a Moxy like certified badge. And then once they have the Moxy certification and ours, if they want to share their financials and they have enough money to finish the development without additional pre-sales, then we'll flip them from a green to a platinum. And we also have the ability to offer them insurance on that investment. So there's a company in Mexico that will insure 100% of your investment for about 1.5%. So basically, if you you buy a property, so say $1 million, and you put down 500,000 of that up front, and then the remaining 500,000 at the time you get the keys, then you would need to finance that 500, or we can insure that 500,000 once they go platinum, and that cost is about $7,500, and we do that with the developer has to agree to do that, and then we can do it because our platform we typically send leads, and we only send leads at like 50% of what they normally would charge. So like if a Preventa's paying 6 to 8% commissions, we would normally only want 3 to 4. And if we send them that wants insurance or they want that product, we would charge a little more. Anyway, so that's that. Any questions on? I've talked about it a lot pretty fast. Any questions yet?
Any questions on the platform?
Yeah, so I've got it. So basically, I'll keep going then. The other thing we're doing is I have not seen any platform that's designed for preventas. And so basically, you have preventas that are being put on real estate, like for sale real estate sites. So we're building a development portal, or we're building a portal for development properties within Boingo, where you'll be able to see like a 3D virtual reality walkthrough of the property. So it'll show all the amenities, it'll show the entire build out. You'll be able to zoom in, zoom out. You'll see which properties are sold, which ones aren't, what they look like furnished, how many are available, and updated pricing. So we're in the process of building that all on the Preventa side, but we'll probably only offer that for the green and platinum properties. In addition to that, we're building a SaaS platform, so which is software as a service. So we're building a customized CRM, basically that will allow anyone on the planet to put in a lead, and anyone on the planet they can legally close a lead to get the lead, and then it tracks the lead all the way through. So we're focusing on getting influencers that have a lot of followers with good engagement that never talk about real estate. We're focusing on getting them in here. Everything would be free for them, and it'd be free for all the real estate professionals for probably 1 to 2 years. We're also doing AI generated websites, so they'll look just like our Boingo site. One of the things that I've noticed in Mexico is you have very few websites with good interactive maps. I don't think any of the big agglomerators have it. I don't know that I've seen a website, to be honest, in Mexico that had a good interactive map like Zillow. So like when you go to Zillow, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can like scroll one way or the other, and you can see all the properties that are available. And there's just nothing like that in Latin America. So Boingo has that as well. And so when we generate these websites, we'll be basically making them mini versions of what we have, but instead of having, say, the entire world or the entire country, the websites would be limited to like Playa del Carmen. So if it's a real estate agent that's focused in Playa del Carmen, then they would get a map of Playa del Carmen, all the properties would populate in there. So that's what we're doing there. We're also building out a partner network. So like I said, Moxy is in our partner network. We've got an insurance, we got about 3 insurance companies in our partner network. And this is basically, a moving company. When people relocate or they're investing in Mexico, what are the services that they need that we can say, okay, if you go with these providers, we guarantee you're going to get a good price and you're going to get a good service. So it's not something that people can buy into. It's something that we have to select for. I think some of you guys probably know Pablo Arias. So he's, who we've selected for moving. Right now, Moxy is the only finance company we've worked with. We have one company in Mexico City we're partnering with to do all of the closings. So where a lot of the notaries in Mexico will charge a flat 3% on a closing, the one we're working with typically charges 1 to 1.5%. So it's a lot more economical. And then he's got networks with his company all throughout Mexico. So anyway, so we're building that partner network because it doesn't exist, and a lot of people don't know where to go or who to trust when they're looking for these services. And then the other piece is around this lead platform. It's heavily AI influenced, and that's what I talked about, where we're plugging in these real estate or the influencers, and we're feeding them basically either videos or links to like properties and giving them key talking points, but we're making it as easy as possible. In some cases, we'll actually clone their voices and their faces, and we'll take videos that I do or somebody else does, and we'll transfer that into their likeness, and they just have to post the video. Then when somebody comments a certain word within their social media, it automatically goes into the CRM. And then we use AI to basically vet that lead until they're ready to look. And then we transfer that lead to a licensed real estate agent. So that's the platform we're building. Any questions on any of this? No questions?
Are you open to giving this to developers to use?
What's that?
Will this be, hi, good morning, sorry. Is this product going to be available for developers as well who are looking to pre-sell their developments?
It'll be available. Ideally, we'll work through master brokers. So I don't really want to go direct. It's much better for us to work through master brokers. So, our first question to a developer is, do you have a master broker already in place?
Sure.
And then we want to work through them.
Yeah, their sales teams, they would definitely love this. It would be a huge asset.
Yeah, because we're not, that's the other thing is we're not real estate agents, and we don't show properties, we don't sell properties, but we do, I already get a lot of leads that I share with other real estate agents. And so basically Boingo's, from what it's a big lead platform basically. So.
Very cool.
And then, so this is just kind of a screenshot. Let me see. Sometimes my computer or my internet's like really slow. So yeah, my internet's very slow. So okay. So the other thing you guys might find interesting here is if you look at the entire global real estate market, it's about $534 trillion. So this would be if you sold every piece of real estate in the world. The lion's share of the value is sitting here in Asia, with like 40% of that value is right here, probably because that's where 40% of the population is, with China and India. And then the interesting thing here is when you look at Latin America is the fastest growing area for real estate in the world, and it's growing at Latin America is growing between 7 and 8.4% annually. And of that growth, Mexico is leading all countries in real estate growth, and Mexico is averaging 8 to 11%, depending on where in the country you are. So I think that's an interesting, slide to look at. Let me see. Okay, so that's basically, I think, the things that I think you guys would find the most valuable. So I don't have a lot of other information that I've prepared. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and fire them away.
Yeah, I can go over questions, and let me open up the screen here. There you are. So if anybody has any questions, we're going to go over also maybe the typical question, at least mine, when people say that Mexico is dangerous, we always, battle that question. And you also address that in your content. What would you say, and what caution or what steps people need to follow besides, don't go to
a couple of things. So I would say one of the things I find very fascinating is San Diego is one of the safest cities in the United States with a population over 1 million people. And then Tijuana is one of the most dangerous cities in the world, right? Everybody knows Tijuana is very dangerous. And so when I talk to people that live and work in both areas, so they may work in San Diego, but they live in Tijuana. So far, I've talked to 25 people that have lived in both areas. 24 of 25 people feel not only safer in Tijuana, they feel much safer in Tijuana. And so it's hard to describe, but there's a criminal element of crime in Mexico that everybody's aware of. It's called the cartels. And, I would say, depending on where you live, this might change, because I mostly have lived in tourist areas. But I have been, I spent some time in Guadalajara, some time in Mexico City, and I had the same experience there. Is you don't have random crime. So I've never heard of a carjacking in Mexico happening. You don't have drug addicts breaking into, suburban and rural houses, stealing things to sell for drugs. So you still have random crime as you would with anywhere, but you don't have the degree of random crime that you would have in any, of the US cities. So from my perspective, it's much safer to live in Mexico than it is in the US, especially some of the bigger cities. But almost all the crime you see in the US is very random. It's very unorganized. It's in Mexico, it's not. So, for instance, if you want to sell drugs in Mexico and you're not in one of the cartels, you're probably not going to have a long life expectancy. There were some, guys from Australia that were murdered about a year ago or so in Baja California. And one of the things the media didn't talk about was they were suspected of being drug dealers, but the media said that they were killed because they wanted their truck or their tires on the truck or something like that, and that probably wasn't the case. So the cartels, and I learned this from dating the cartel princes, the cartels are very business oriented, and they basically protect their business, but they do that pretty much. It seems to be in a pretty predictable way. So for instance, like in Acapulco, when I was in Acapulco, there was a story about two kids that lived in the town that were robbing the tourists. They had a bunch of Airbnb properties. The two kids were robbing them. The guys in the cartel called them out and said, "Look, you can't do this. You're hurting our business. You're scaring the tourists. We're already seeing less people here. You guys need to stop." And the kids laughed it off, and they kept going. And then the cartel executed both of them. So that's been my experiences. It's like not a written law with what goes on with the cartels, but it's pretty obvious. You don't mess with human trafficking. You don't mess with drugs. And if you ever get into any kind of thing where you get a warning, you absolutely stop. On Quinta Avenida here in Playa del Carmen, some of the people that get killed the most are these waiters that work in these restaurants. A lot of them Argentinian, and people will come into the restaurant. Tourists come into the restaurant and they want to buy cocaine or they want to buy marijuana. They ask the waiter, do you have any connections? I want to buy this. Most of the locals here get like 50% discount on that stuff. And so the waiters, happen to have that stuff on them sometimes, and they basically fill the order. They give the drugs to the tourist, and then typically the cartel finds out about it. They give them a warning. The cartels almost always give warnings. The cartels give a warning like, hey, you're not allowed to do this, and then they keep doing it, and then they end up getting killed, and you're like, how dumb can you be? But yeah, I think it, and I'm sure it depends. I've never been to Colima. I heard Colima is dangerous, but from my perspective, Mexico is much safer. It's not even really comparable. But I know the media says it's the opposite. So,
Lucila has a question. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Nathaly. Thank you, Sean, for all of this and devoting this time to us. I love this. Well, I am from Mexico, and I've been in Canada for about 30 years, and I've been a realtor for 20-something years. And yeah. 5 years, probably, I have been getting a lot of questions from my clients and sphere of influence, how to get to buy a house in Mexico. And I've been following you on Instagram a lot, and I've been referring them, watch this, That's information and very valuable. But in like being proactive, in my case as an agent, I've been in touch with Nathaly and her team, and they've been helpful. But how do we complement what you are doing with the work that we can do in Canada, and support each other? How could I partner or have more information of what is happening with what you are offering, and how do we work together with that type of clients? That's one question. And the other is that
so one of the things we're building is the CRM, where you can, if you get a lead for property, you can put the lead within the CRM. And then, you can basically say, hey, I want 30%, 40%, 50% of the commission, and then they have to accept it on that end of it. So that's one way to do it. Another way would be, just check out Boingo and just play around on it. And when you get,
I'll share the website too, in case you're curious. And that's kind of for the property search, right? Right now, Sean. Boingo AI will be mostly for property search. Sean, for Boingo AI will be mostly right now property search.
Yeah.
And the vetting part.
Right now it's mostly just property search. And so like if like sometimes people in Canada actually get. So the crazy thing is in Mexico, you don't have a lot of exclusive listings, right? Mm-hmm. And so the other way with Boingo is because our AI looks for duplicates and removes duplicates. We often have people will shop. They want to sell their property. They don't want to do an exclusive listing. They'll say, look, whoever brings the buyer, I'm paying 6%. I mean, I very rarely hear of somebody shopping a listing around without an exclusive agreement that says I'm going to pay 3%. I mean, virtually they're all saying I'm going to pay the 6%. They just don't want to do an exclusive, but they'll shop that listing out sometimes to 10 or 20 different people, not even real estate professionals. A lot of times, a lot of times it's just people, because, you have 10,000 people selling real estate in Quintana Roo, for instance, and there's only, I think, 300 that are certified or licensed rather. So one of the things you can do is if you get those, you can put those into Boingo. And then if anybody has an interest in those properties, they're going to have to contact you because you're going to have an exclusive agreement within Boingo on that property because you're the first one to list it, right? So that's one way. I don't know if you get many of those, but I would imagine if you have dual citizenship, you're probably getting quite a few of those. So that's one way. And we're trying to educate real estate agents to put your websites in there right away. Because if you're the first one to list that property and we got it from your website, then our site will always reference that link and your information to know who to send people to when they have an interest in it. So So basically, you have the property, somebody finds it, they're interested. That lead right now would go to me, and then I have to find a real estate agent to connect them with. And then once I find a real estate agent to connect them with, I'm going to send them your information and say, okay, this came from, Lucila, or is it Lucila? Yeah, this came from Lucila, and here's her contact information. And then you'll get a call from that agent and say, okay, hey, I've got somebody that's interested. What's the total commission? What's the split? Da, 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 da. And you're going to be able to get credit for that by, even though 20 other people may have that same listing and you're not an exclusive, it'll be exclusive in our system. So that's another way I think we can work together.
And with clients that I could have clients that want buyers who wants to buy in the areas in Mexico, what will be the process?
Yeah, so like if you have buyers that you could send them a link to Boingo, and you can say, okay, here is Boingo. They've got, because we now have the most listings of any website in Mexico. So we have about 35,000 unique listings in Mexico, which from our data, we now have the biggest database of unique properties. So you could literally send them to our website, and you could say, look, find some properties you like here, and then send me the links. And so they send you those links of the properties they like. And so that's another way to do it. There are options for you to sponsor properties. So like if somebody sponsors a property, then all of those leads go directly to whoever sponsored them. They don't go to me. I'm telling people in all honesty, right now we're focusing on raising capital, and we're focusing on getting the properties in. We're not focusing on getting traffic yet to the site. And so until we have a lot of traffic, I'm telling people to go the free option. Get your properties in there. It's free. But don't pay, for the sponsorship yet, because we don't have the amount of traffic yet that may be going to overwhelm you with leads. So let's just hold off on that. But eventually, once we have more traffic, then you can sponsor, the listings you put in, or you can sponsor other listings, you could literally go to any area of Mexico and you could say, like, I really like Puerto Cancun. I'm going to sponsor all the properties over $1 million in Puerto Cancun, which is probably all of them. And then any interest on those properties, you get all those leads directly. But like I said, right now, I would just go the free route and put your properties on there.
Okay, so
to explain a little bit, Sean does not do the active showings. So he will be a referring partner for local agents to have the listings in Mexico, so we can have a clean database of vetted properties. So we're talking about the tech side. If you're talking about the sales side, Sean is the one sending the leads to the agents. So if you send a lead to Sean, he's gonna bounce it to another agent. So there's gonna be but for the platform, is the vetted properties that you see there, you can check with Sean, hey, I saw this. How do I go through the system? Maybe so, the person who listed there can get credit for the listing side, but it's mostly about the vetted properties.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like if you have the leads and they're ready to buy, I'm not a good person to send leads to. Now maybe I am. I mean, I would tell you, like, okay, I get 50%. All of the leads I work with are all brokers. So they're getting the full commission, and I typically negotiate 50% of the commission. And if somebody gives me a lead, then I pay them 2/3 of that 50%. So if you've got commission splits already at 25%, and you come to me, it's going to be about, I don't know, like what, 37%. So it depends on where you're at with what you've negotiated with commission splits. Got it. So I may be able to get you a better commission in some cases, but in general, especially if you're a member of EXP, I would just put the lead right into EXP and say, okay, here's everything, and then let them go with it.
Yeah, that was my next question, exactly. Yes, and yes, maybe some other have questions here as well. I have friends who are developing in that area. How do I connect them with you? Because they might want to have them vetted and listed on your site.
Yeah, I can drop my WhatsApp. Should I put it in here or?
Yeah, you can put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, they can just WhatsApp me at any time. I mean, and say, hey, I'm interested in getting, my property certified. Because I meet with probably, I don't know, a couple developers every week. We're looking at one in Playa right now.
So for any listings, let's say, that would be a better fit, so they can vet them, put them in the system, and then other agents can see that as a, approved, like it looks good property, and then they can go find it there. So if you have any developers in Mexico, I recommend them going through at least the vetting process of checking the legality of it, and then get clients more,
And also what we do should help the real estate agents as well, because there's a lot of real estate agents out that are not, and in the people that don't live here. I mean, people that live here, like Elaine, are probably very skilled in this. But people that don't necessarily live in Mexico may not even be aware of it. But when you have a development property, the level of confidence that they're going to complete that, if you don't do any kind of due diligence, is like, throwing darts in the dark. I mean, you have no idea if they're going to finish it. And so by basically having us vet them, you could use our system and say, okay, I'm only going to recommend, developments that Boingo has certified, and then that gives you a layer of protection as well, so that you can say, look, I did my due diligence because Boingo did these steps, and it protects you. Because I know there's a law firm here in Playa right now that has 100 active lawsuits, and in most of those lawsuits, they're not only suing the developer, they've brought the real estate agent into the lawsuit as well, because the real estate agent didn't do any due diligence on the property. So in some cases they had no permits. In some cases they had a history of failures, just a lot of reasons that were very basic, but the realtor didn't do any kind of due diligence whatsoever. So this would help protect you as well on that.
Thank you for everything you are doing.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Irma, let's go.
Hi, everybody. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to Sean. I am meeting you, even though it's like on Zoom, but I have been following you for over 2 years. I'm a big fan of your content and what you do. So thank you for that. I actually even recommend you to people that I come across here in Dallas, and they tell me, oh, I'm going to Playa del Carmen, or, is it safe? Because they've never been. Like, they're so excited. They just got their passport. And, like a lot of us get that, is it safe? But is it safe? I'm scared. Oh, I'm going to a wedding, but is it safe? I'm like, stop. Just don't even go further. So what I do is I shoot him one of your videos. Watch this guy. Watch as much content as you can. He's got a lot of statistics. He's done a lot of research on Mexico. He's living there. He's a gringo. Go look at CaribeGringo, so I recommend you a lot. I actually even touched base with you on there once. So my question for you is, what is the biggest growth right now? Is it Tulum or a little bit further south?
Man, Tulum, and I know Elaine is in here, so I don't know if there's any other real estate agents from the area. So if I say anything that you don't agree with, speak up. But I would say, from my perspective, I would kind of call Tulum a train wreck right now. So the best estimate I have is there's about 10,000 empty mostly one bedroom and studio units that are still for sale. I know one woman that has 35 units. She's got all 35. She bought them during COVID. She had a lot of money. She was from New Jersey. She got a second on some of her real estate in the U.S. And so she bought 35 of these properties. Her properties are mainly 2-bedroom lock-offs. But she has some studios, some 1-bedroom. She has some 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms. And she's basically got everything. She's furnished. So she if you take the price she paid during pre-sale, which was discounted, she has all of her properties marked down 30% off of that price. She has furnished every one of them. So that's another cost. And she's paying a 12% commission to any real estate agent that brings a buyer. And she's been selling these 35 properties for at least a year, and she still has 35 properties to sell. She can't move them. So I would say, in general, I would say Tulum, if you're looking for investment property for short-term rentals, I would say stay away from Tulum. Yeah. If you're looking for a good buy that long-term is going to be a great investment, but you're talking 10 years or more, then go in there, know that you've got a really, a very, very strong buyer's market, and use as much negotiation as you can, and get something at a good value right now, and then hold it long term, and you're going to do very well. I think long term, I think Tulum is going to be a wonderful city. But right now, Tulum is kind of broken. The police chief was executed there, and earlier in the year, you've got some cartel, wars going on, basically. So tourists aren't being impacted, but there were a lot of homicides in the first part of the year. A lot of dismembered people were found in the jungle. So Tulum, I would say, just be very wary of it. Now, the other thing with Tulum is if you have a client with like $1 million and they can go buy a nice 5-bedroom place, and they have a good property manager to manage that, those properties are still doing well from a payback standpoint, especially when you partner them with a company that does like really good concierge, and you're getting a piece of the homeowner is getting a piece of the concierge money. But aside from those high-end valued properties like that, I would stay away unless you wanted something long-term or you want to live there. There's a property right now the guy has 2.5 hectares, which is like 5 acres of land. It's on the outskirts of Tulum, just past the train station. It's in a gated community. That's all the homes there have, big 5-acre lots like that. It's a 3,000 square foot home. It's a 3,000 square foot, 5-bedroom, 5-bath home, beautiful house. It has solar panels and everything. And, that's 500, I think he's asking 550,000 for that house. So you can get some really good deals, but that house is too far out to rent, maybe long term. So if you want to move to Tulum and get a good deal, or you want to invest long term and get a good deal. And then the other thing is, now that everybody knows that these 4 and 5-bedroom units are doing so well, now you're seeing, I think 10% of the new developments in Tulum are now 4 and 5-bedroom units. So right now there's a good market, and they can in the Airbnb returns are good on those properties. But I don't know if they're building too many now to saturate that market as well. So that's a potential issue coming up in the next few years. But that's my view on Tulum. Now Playa, I haven't seen any of the official numbers, but when I've walked this, the Quinta Avenida, this appears to be the busiest year I've seen from a tourist standpoint, where people are here like this week, like last Friday, I was walking Quinta Avenida. It's almost as busy as it is during the November, December, January months. So where you get the big flux of tourists here, typically October through April, that appears to be going year round. You're getting a lot more Mexican tourists coming in here in the summertime, and you're getting a lot more U.S. and Canadian tourists here as well. So I would say, and you don't have the glut of inventory. So Playa does not have 10,000 empty units sitting on the market. It's a much more balanced market, and so I think Playa is still very strong. Although you still have to be careful that there are a lot of studio and 1-bedrooms here that probably won't do so well on Airbnb. I know a guy that has some really nice units on 38. And he's got them rented out right now for like $29 a night, and they're probably 50% unoccupied. And so you got to be, it all depends on what you're buying. Anything unique is going to be anything unique and different, right? It's like, if you have a very unique property, it's bigger, it's more luxurious, it's got some different amenities, but look for things that I think are unique or different. Elaine just said Playa is number 1, and then Puerto Morelos is another place you might want to look at. Puerto Morelos is a really kind of a sleeper place. It's south of Cancun. It's very, very low key. I would consider it like almost like an Aquamal. Very, very low stress area. Not a lot of partying going on. Where Playa's got loud music, a lot of partying. You don't have that in Puerto Morelos. But I like that. There's also another area, I think it's called, is it Punta Cana or Punta, what the hell? It's north of the hotel zone. So they're putting in another hotel zone in I think it's
I think it's Punta Playa, I heard that. Yeah,
I
North.
think it's Cana. I think it's Punta Cana. It's another. So that so that area is potentially very hot, and I still like for higher end clients. If you guys ever seen, I mean, if you guys ever go to Cancun, make sure you go to Puerto Cancun. So Puerto Cancun reminds me of the pictures I see of Dubai. It reminds me of some of the really high end areas in Florida, where you have the skyscrapers, you have the marinas, you have the really high end shopping. So that's another area that I really like, and it's not overbuilt. And then Cancun itself is actually a pretty good market. Cancun's growing a lot like Las Vegas was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where, Vegas just kind of merged in with Henderson. And you have that kind of fiery growth right now going on in Cancun. And in general, population is doubling in the state of Quintana Roo right now about every 5 to 7 years. So, you still have a lot of people moving here. So it kind of depends. But yeah, I would be very cautious of Tulum. And then, so then you ask about south of Tulum, you have really the only thing south of Tulum is Mahahual and Ishkalek. And my experience with Mahahual is Mahahual is like it's very small, but it's like two different towns. You have a tourist area with a walkway, or what do you call it, a malecon, and then you have kind of the town area. And the pricing I've seen coming out of Mahahual has not been that attractive, right? It's like, okay, you can get these prices in Tulum or in Playa. Well, I would expect it to be less money, but there are people that are going there. Ishkalek, if it ever gets developed, I think would be the bomb, which is the furthest south town I can't really call it a town, but it's very, very small. But it's the furthest west or furthest south town in Quintana Roo, and it's really close to Belize. The Mayans cut a trench or a canal between what is Belize and what is the southern end of Quintana Roo there. And if they ever put a bridge across that and start developing Ishkalek, that would be a pretty amazing place. But anyway, that's my thoughts. I guess
I agree with that.
selling the real estate much longer than I have, so I would probably ask him what his thoughts are on Mahahual.
Elaine, you had a question or comment?
No, it was Mahahual. I've been there. They have eco-touristic place, and the government, I was putting in the chat, they give a lot of money to that destination, and they are doing like Cozumel. They are putting a cruise ship tour over there, and cruise ship goes every day to that place. So
yeah, and I think one of the cruise lines is investing $1 billion into that area as well. So yeah, it's just not as inexpensive as you would think.
No,
So,
of course.
Price-wise, yeah, I think the price is overpriced a bit, but maybe it's gonna grow, so we can, go back in time. Maybe right now is the lowest, but it can also have a boom like Tulum and then deflate.
Well, in beachfront property, if you go beachfront property, there is less expensive than say Tulum by a pretty large margin. But I was looking at like lots and condos that they were building. They were like pretty much the same prices you would get in Tulum or Playa. I'm like, I would want them to be a little bit less. But yeah, beachfront lots there's still a few of those left, and they're very inexpensive.
And then at least you get to the water, because in Mahahual you can get in the water. In Tulum, you cannot get into the beach for free, at least.
Yeah, I know they have you blocked off. I was hoping in Tulum that when they opened up the new Jaguar Park that you could access the beach for free through that. But I'm being told they're charging $20 a person just to go that way, and it's like, well, that makes no sense. Yeah, you have almost no free access to the beach in Tulum. If you're a local, there's a few spots here and there that you're going to know, but if you're a tourist, you know. And the other thing, Tulum is tourism is really hurting this year. Tourism is really down. Ever since April, every time I go to Tulum, it's kind of like a ghost town.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, there's some comparables and videos that we have on, the market of Mexico and at least Riviera Maya on what the trends are and what Sean says is very true. Like right now it's a ghost town. We have clients there that bought with the hope because there was like a big boom during the pandemic and then everything wind down mostly because of. So everybody who comes into the airport like, hey, I want to buy Tulum, we're like, okay, why? If you're looking for return, just look the other way. Look this other way because that's not
Right.
going to be where you're going to get it. Merida is really good, as you mentioned, Irma. We're going to be doing a real estate tour from in Riviera Maya. Actually, Sean and I probably will be collaborating on that in December if you're coming for your birthday, because we'll have 4 days. Last year we did the same thing. We did like this is Puerto Cancun, this is, and then go down each of them. Riviera Maya is huge to do it in 4 days, but at least you get the feeling of like, okay, you get this for that. This is the luxury style. This is the golf community style. This is the family area, and then you can recommend it to your clients and send, to the local agents the referral if you want them to walk through the showings one-on-one.
Yeah, and I mean, there's an area that I really like in Campeche that I think is a really good value as well. But that's a 9-hour drive from Cancun or from Playa, so it's not something that's easy to get to. Last time I went, the client rented a jet when it made a great day. He rented the jet. We went out and saw the property, had some amazing food. Went out and there's a bay behind the island that the property sits on, where it's the largest bottlenose dolphin population in the world, and it's like some of the best fishing in all of Mexico. And the bay is so clear. The bay has 2 rivers that come into it, and it's not real deep. So the water changes every 24 to 48 hours. So like in the US, when I compare it to like San Francisco Bay or San Diego Bay or Chesapeake Bay or any of those bays, you don't want to swim in any of those. Where this one, the water's crystal clear like Bacalar. And so, we're out in the middle of the bay on sandbars, just, enjoying the water while we're out there. But that one's, really remote. That's like a buy and hold. It's not an investment like for short-term, rentals and stuff.
Any other questions before we finish? Anybody else? Or comments? Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap up with a quick summary of next steps. Nobody? Okay, cool. Thank you, Sean. I'm gonna remove here. Let's see how this looks like. So again, everybody who's in this call has been through maybe probably some of our WhatsApp group. You can follow Sean. This is his QR code to his Instagram, but probably you already do follow him. CaribeGringo, yeah, you do? Yes. So let me go here one sec. Pin. Perfect. So you can follow Sean under his link. This is his bio, as we mentioned before. For anything that has to do with real estate in Mexico. Again, this is my QR code as well. If you want to learn more about overall Mexico, we are kind of providing the education, the how to, some of the research as well. And with the local agents, you can probably send those referrals directly. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly. And with that, I want to announce the real estate tours that we have coming up this December. We have the dates set, and we're going to have 2 different ones. One of Riviera Maya, 4 days, and one in Merida, 4 days right after. So back to back, in case you want to learn more about international real estate, Mexico, how is it doing, what markets are growing, what markets are stagnant. These are, let me see here if it goes next. This is one of the videos we did with Sean and the team as well about, what's the importance of going in person, seeing the developments, and why real estate tours can help you understand better, not only the market, the prices, what do you get for what, but also to connect with other local agents, local professionals that can give you this, one-on-one advice. The more you know, the more you can advise your clients. So this is a video that goes to this is a QR code that goes to the video, so you can watch it. It's about 9 minutes. But over there, you'll see the why of real estate tours and the importance of doing it in person. You'll see a lot of content online. You'll see a lot of advertising online, but not everything that shines is gold. We know that. But at least with this, we'll get a lot of feedback, a little more education. The next tour, if you want to save the date, for Riviera Maya will be December 11 to 14. Merida will be December 15th to the 19th. So right back to back, if you want to save 8 days to 10 days, not 8 weeks, sorry. So save a couple weeks if you have vacation time, because we want to go through every single area, opportunity, what, attractions, what's close to what, how's the train like. Maybe we can take the train together and go from one location to the other so you can get the experience, understand what's happening there and what's not happening there. I think that's it. If anybody has any further questions, otherwise I'm going to close the call. Again, the purpose of this call is to network, sharing knowledge, building the community. We have announcements at the end, like the one today for the real estate tours, and please invite other people to the next call. Next week, we're going to be doing probably Ecuador and India as a topic. So if you have any agents that are curious about that market, or they want to learn more, or they're from that market originally and they're in the US, or they're back at home, this is an opportunity for them to bring their products up and then showcase their inventory. This is open to new agents, EXP agents, and non-EXP agents. And with that, I'll finish. You guys have the QR code for the WhatsApp group. So in case you want to invite anybody, that's where it's going to be. I'll stop sharing now. Again, thank you, Sean, for the time, the knowledge, and the updates.
My pleasure.
Sometimes you have to hear the same information from more than one person to grasp what the current situation is. And I encourage you guys to always ask questions to more than 3 people about the same market, because if they're going to tell you the same thing, then probably that's where the market is. Otherwise, if you're going just to buy, or your client is just to buy, they're going to tell them what they want to hear for them to close. And then there are consequences after, because if you're pushing a product, just one product to a client, you're not giving them the whole spectrum of how the market works. If any further questions, you can let me know. I'm going to stop recording, and thank you again, Sean.